I mean, when you say like a Western,
Uh,
I believe it was Toby Hooper, I could be wrong, that called horror movies the modern Western.
mm-hmm.
Um, JG, you're the resident TIR movie guy. Would you agree with that analogy?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it, to be honest. I could see that in that it's like, Westerns are one of the most popular genres, and, you could produce them on the cheap back in the day. And I think that's the same with, horror movies. I think horror gave a lot of directors their first
Yes.
opportunity to break in the same way that, I think that was true of Westerns as well. So I can definitely see similarities. And it's funny because you were talking about movies that could be considered Westerns. And I was thinking of John Carpenter's Escape from New York, which also
It's a Western.
I would, yeah, it's a Western, but it also has like horror elements to it with the crazies and all that stuff in it. So it's interesting. A lot of those 80s movies,
I mean, while
even
we're
if they're
doing
not horror movies, they have elements of horror in them,
I mean, while we're doing Carpenter, Assault on Precinct 13, is it has like some Western feel to it. You're defending this like little outpost, with like your hardy little band of gunfighters. I'm just kind of trying to think about it on the fly. If there's other Carpenters, is there like a?
Well, I believe the whole statement was the way the storytelling has, this person's journey. I think a lot of these people that are making these films grew up with low budget Westerns and horror films. And I think you see it in the filmmaking of people like John Carpenter. This isn't 1984. I think it's 86, but a movie like The Hitcher to me is a Western, even the setting in kind of nowhere America, right? The badlands, if you will, of like looks like California, Arizona, like the West. I forget where the Hitcher is supposed to be, where they're supposed to be driving, but as someone that's driven through the western region of the United States a lot, it does have that feeling of running into a bad hombre in one of those small towns. And the Western is pretty much dead. I mean, they try to revive it with Silverado, which was that 84 or 85 that Silverado comes out. But it's really gone in the 80s. And I think horror takes its place mainly because there's a home video market that's really starting to boom. And the one thing you can make for it that'll work is horror movies. You can try to make a low budget romance, but who the fuck really wants to see it?
A few years later than 1984, but Near Dark is definitely
Near Dark is definitely a Western.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can see what Toby Hooper means by a lot of horror movies are Westerns. I was thinking about when he does, I think it's in 86, he does Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, which is definitely has a Western vibe to it, right down to Dennis Hopper is like the lawman that has to take down the outlaw cannibal family. Even the original Halloween has that sort of like Dr. Loomis is sort of like the lawman that has to take down the gunman, the bad outlaw, who in this case is the stalker killer. Yeah, Michael Myers.
Yeah, he's been trailing him through the desert, and now he's like caught up to him. Yeah, I can see that.
In your guys' opinion, what led to the downfall of the slasher by 1984? I want people to remember that Friday the 13th Part 5 that comes out in 84 is the final chapter because that was to mark an end of the Jason franchise. So,
I'll let Ben go first.
Well, let me. Okay. Yeah, I mean, let me just say, like, I mean, it feels a little strange to say that it declined, fallen by 1984 because 1984 is where my candidate for the best one was made, right? Nightmare on Elm Street. So, and it is also maybe worth mentioning that, like, they called it the final chapter, but there were like 6.
Oh, well, look, if you, I remember the back in my day, the hype around Silent Night, Deadly Night which has the ad that was in the newspapers of the Santa Claus going down the chimney with the axe, and people mad that they were like kind of ruining Christmas for children. And I don't know how many children were really going to go watch this movie that was never going to have a long theater run. Like, another thing that video did was you didn't need to have long theater runs for these films. So if you were to go look them up on Internet Movie Database, you might see a lot of these films didn't make a lot of money at the box office because they really weren't designed to make that much money at the box office. They were going to make money in the home video rental market. I don't think any of the sequels to Silent Night, Deadly Night ever saw theatrical releases, and they ended up making like 4 or 5 of those movies. JG, do you know how many of the Silent Night, Deadly Nights they made? I know they made at least 3.
They made 5, and then since then there's been a reboot of sorts.
Gross.
Yeah, fair. I also want to say, Chapter Black asked in the chat, is Ghostbusters a Western? And even I'm not shameless enough to like fully go for it, balls out, say that it was a Western, but there are points of similarity there. I mean, you have your gunfighters in this analogy who are like kind of disreputable characters. The establishment in the town doesn't like them, but they end up having to like, commission them at the end to take down the bad guy. So, that's very Westerny.
Do you call Ghostbusters a horror movie? Because I got scared in the beginning of it when they're in the library.
I mean, I would. I think it's a horror comedy.
I think what people call it now, they're trying to like brand those type of movies as cozy horror. Have you guys heard of that?
I haven't heard that.
No,
I don't even want to get into it. It's a stupid branding.
Well, that's
Okay.
Like stuff like the Wednesday TV series, or now people say Ghostbusters or the Addams Family movies are like cozy horror. Like light horror for people that don't like the hard stuff. And I'm like, oh, what does that even mean? It's just a branding exercise.
I mean, look, I love the hard stuff, and I mean, Ghostbusters is like one of my favorite movies.
No, it definitely. I think it's, if not horror, it's horror adjacent. I think it's a horror comedy, definitely.
I want to go down a list of some of the movies that came out in 1984 because I'm shocked at how many came out in 1984. Chud. Ben, have you seen Chud?
I have actually seen Chud. Yeah.
What did you think of Chud?
What did I think of Chud?
Cannibal.
I think it delivered what the title
cannibal
promised.
Human.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, I believe.
But then at the end, you find out that's not what it means. It means contamination, hazardous. What is it? JG, what is it? I know you know.
Oh, I don't even remember what. I just remember the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. But I know what you're talking about. They find out the real meaning. Yeah,
because of the whole.
I love that movie, by the way. It's been so long since I've seen it, but.
It's on YouTube.
You just have that like weird looking creature popping up out of the sewer and stuff. Daniel Stern shows up. John Goodman has a cameo. There's a lot of Before You Were Famous, appearances in it.
Yes.
I mean, I don't remember Chud well enough to love it, but I do have distinct memories of hanging out at my friend's cabin and, getting drunk and watching it. And I feel like I enjoyed it at the time.
Children of the Corn, which JG.
Crap. I've never finished Children of the Corn. I've never finished it. It's crap. It's boring. It should be put on so I can fall asleep. One day I'm going to try to watch it again, and maybe I'll change my mind. But
so this is a banner moment in the stream because I'm 100% sure the only movie that I have seen all the way through that JG has.
Children of the Corn.
It's Children of the Corn, right? Because there's no way, right? He's seen everything. So this is kind of cheating. It's just because he chose not to finish it, but not like he never got around to it. But yeah, I've seen it. It's not a great movie. You're not a fan. I mean, I don't think I maybe hate it as much as JG does, but it's not good. I mean, it's like, I honestly, like, I don't know. I always thought they did the thing, the He Who Moves Between the Rows, where there's like, and it always just looked like a really big gopher to me, the way that the dirt was moving around. I don't know. I mean, like it was kind of funny watching it because certainly years before I finally got around to watching it, I watched the South Park parody of it, where the kids realize that they want to go to a concert and their parents won't let them, and then Cartman teaches them they can make all the grown-ups go away if they say the magic M word, molested. And so that creates the city of South Park has only children in it, and like this couple drives through and they do like a lot of the beats from Children of the Corn. And then like the big twist at the end is that it's only been like 3 days. And that's how long it took to like for them to descend to that level.
Like Children of the Corn is one of those movies that I remember watching one night, like it came on cable. Like so many of the way I consumed these movies was through cable. And I talk a lot about home video in the intro, but cable is a rising phenomenon at the same time too. I know Bessner doesn't talk about it in his piece, but Vulture magazine did a good piece a year ago about how the end of cable kind of marked the end of certain aspects of Hollywood, because that was like the goose with the golden egg with cable for years, for decades. And a lot of these low budget movies, definitely fed cable's 24-hour programming schedule that people like me that don't know how to go to sleep definitely consumed throughout my childhood. And I remember watching it, and the opening scene scared the shit out of me with that creepy looking fucking kid. It was Malachi. And then it just kind of gets real dull.
That's the thing. Maybe I shouldn't have been so harsh when I said it's crap, but like I've just never been able to get through it. I want to finish it one day, but I'm just like it's a very dull movie.
It's a dull movie. And Stephen King stuff, he's printing money for Hollywood at a certain point, right? It starts with Carrie. Then you get The Shining, which might be one of the best horror suspense thriller movies of all time.
No question to my mind. I also think, I know this is like super heretical, but I actually think that the Kubrick's movie is better than King's book. And I say that as somebody who actually really likes Stephen King, but like, that's like a pretty good Stephen King book. And that's like a top 50 kind of movie.
Did you ever see the mini series that Mick Garris did of The Shining?
No.
I have,
and that's why. I just never no one remembers that because it wasn't as good as the Jack Nicholson Kubrick movie.
Yeah, I mean, like the whole premise that's like, oh, see, they got to do a mini series where they did all the shit from the book that didn't make it into this amazing movie. It's like it just like the premise kind of made me sad, so like I never felt particularly motivated to try it down and watch it.
It gets some points for me because I have a crush on Rebecca De Mornay, but